to lead the inward life, you must lead an upright life. Sat yogis are those who choose to lead the inward life. And they discover early on that to lead the inward life, you must lead an upright life. Not just that we sit upright when we meditate, and we get up right before dawn to do it, and we lead lives that are morally, ethically upright, but that we are living in the vertical dimension of reality. Not simply in the horizontal plane of time and space. Our goals in life have very little to do with attainments within time and space, but the transcendence of that illusory field of activity. But the vertical dimension does not become accessible until we have inwardized our consciousness sufficiently to reach our center. And so the two intentions are interwoven and interdependent. The more upright we are, the more inward we can go, because there is less guilt, shame, confusion, entanglements, remorse, etc., that shadows us and haunts us and keeps us identified with the bodily vehicle. But then the inwardization is the willingness to let go of the identification with the bodily vehicle. And the more we attempt to go inward, the more we realize the resistances to letting go of that identity. And to realize that what I am does not appear in the world. What I am really does not exist. This is a shock to the ego and an insult. But to realize the self that does not exist, but that is beyond the plane of existence, we must let go of all of the goals that have to do with the existent personality and body in the world, and to disidentify from that entity that has never been anything more than a vehicle through which the hologram of this apparent illusory world appears. But to begin seriously the process of inwardization, the surface level of the mind must be calmed and brought to silence, so it does not keep externalizing our attention into some banal and mundane stream of thought that keeps us bobbing at the surface of the ocean of consciousness and does not allow us to go into the depths. And the great difficulty occurs in this first phase of the inwardization, particularly if the body-mind of the particular existent individual that you are disidentifying from has been traumatized in its life. because this creates a residue of agitation in the mind and of intentions of vengeance and hatred of the other and of the individual self, and disappointment and shame and fear and desire and greed and all of the other backlashes that come as a result of such adverse events in early life. It's to let go of these agitations of the mind that the various techniques of sadhana have developed. And in India in particular, in yogic circles, they talk about 3 different metaphors of this process of calming down the agitated surface ego mind in order to be able to dive within. The first is that of the rubbing together of 2 sticks to create a fire, but one stick actually does the rubbing and the other stays unmoving. But there's a lot of effort that's involved if you've ever tried to create a fire that way. It's not so easy and it's not so quick. But if there's an agitated mind, then what you must do is focus that agitation on the unmoving, passive part of the self and ask within for help from that quiet but inaccessible level of consciousness to appear and ignite the fire that will burn away the vexation and negative affects that afflict the consciousness. One can call out to God if one has such a belief, or to the Buddha mind, or to the emptiness. But there is an effort to reach an internal other who will ignite the will to silence, to liberation, and to illuminate the inner level of consciousness so that the journey within is possible. It's this passion for reaching the true self that comes through this effort, which requires a paradoxical active passivity. And the activity has to be on behalf of reaching that passive, silent presence. But one orbits around it and makes effort to reach it, much as an insect flying around your head tries to reach you and yet at the same time fearfully moves away. And so the ego's fear of getting too close to the very inner flame it's trying to create and ignite, but the fear knowing that it will be burned in that very success, keeps this process requiring more and more effort until the exhaustion of the mind in the very effort of achieving it results in the silence. At the second level, the effort is a different sort, and the metaphor used is the churning of milk to create butter. And here we're dealing with a different sort of process, for the milk is that of the emotions. The heart is being churned in order to bring out the potency of divine love. And this process begins when there is already an inwardization and a recognition that one's agitation in relation to external others was really a projection of an agitation that was a kind of disturbance of one's own heart. And that disturbance is now turned into a churn in order to use that realization that it was energies within oneself that were creating the obstacles to love, that now being used in a very operational and focused sense begin to open the heart to complete vulnerability and enable the latent potential of love to emerge fully as the essence of one's being. And once the light of the mind has been lit and the butter of divine love has been brought out of the milk of the kindness that is the heart's natural state when it has inwardized itself, the divine levels of consciousness are attained, and the final metaphor of transfiguration is used, which is that of the polishing of the diamond, or sometimes the ruby, but that gem that represents the ultimate level of the core of our spirit. But the polishing in this case is not done by oneself. Now it is the passivity that dominates, and the activity is simply the witnessing that it is Shiva himself who is polishing the stone so that he can shine through you. And there is simply that realization that you are being made love to by God that brings the ultimate bliss, that is the reward of meditation and all the hard effort that went into getting past the ego's resistances and fears and past the lack of love in the heart until one reaches that innermost, eternal, invincible, unshakable, uncanny, unimaginably beautiful diamond in the heart of the lotus that now shines with miraculous luminosity as a result of your surrender of all that you are to the Supreme Presence. And in this state, the radiance of being shines. The milk and the butter are both available to be handed out. And the light of that original fire of willpower to attain transcendence can now be transmitted, and other candles can be lit from this one fire that is the sacred fire that has been passed from yogi to yogi, from the beginning of time to its end. And once the flame is again a bonfire of a community of Buddhas, the world hologram can be redreamed, in which no effort needs to be made, because that Supreme Presence has been recognized as what we naturally are. And the land of milk and honey thrives because of the beauty, the goodness, the love, the joy, the wisdom, the power of its avataric residents who have self-created the kingdom of heaven. May we pursue these inward efforts and continue to do the work that is required to break through the resistances and the cynicism and the despair and all of the other egoic components of the false consciousness until they have all been burned up in that flame of divine effort. And the ever-silent stillness of the Supreme Self shines through these instruments to bring about the effortless transformation of all who come into your presence. May this work go on continually, whether it's the lighting of the fire or the creation of the butter or the shining of the diamond, by the simple, effortless remembrance of what you are.